Learning Curves and Coffee, where we skip the perfection, spill the real, and talk parenting, teaching, and personal growth over a hot cup. I'm Ivory, a mother, edupreneur, and your caffeinated co-pilot through the meltdowns, meetings, and magical moments. Let's get into it.
Hey y'all. Hi everybody. Welcome back per usual. Okay. I am going to pivot in today's episode. Today's episode is probably going to sound like the exact opposite of what I have spoken about in over the past 3 years of doing this podcast. So almost 3 years, I want to say, and don't panic. There's a reason and point behind it. So before I say this, because I already know the internet can get spicy about parenting conversations, let me just name gentle parenting is not the enemy. And let me say that first. I talk about and teach about emotional regulation. Of course, I preach about connection. It's paramount and comes first. Of course, children deserve respect. They are human beings before they are your child or children in general. And I believe in breaking harmful cycles more than anything. It is, again, part of the reason why I started this podcast and why I do the work I do with embracing neurodiversity. But I also think a lot of parents are absolutely exhausted trying to parent perfectly. It wears me out just watching it, right? And I worry about even when I am, giving my tools and tips and strategies and talking through and unpacking some things when it comes to or unpacking ways that we can navigate and engage in the parenting journey. I worry that I am adding to this narrative around perfect parenting because I don't want to put an extra burden on parents, right? And nobody wants to say it out loud because the moment you admit it, you're overwhelmed. People start acting like you secretly support yelling at children in parking lots. And I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that that's not the conversation that I want to have. This episode is not about gentle parenting being the enemy. This episode is about the emotional pressure many parents feel to regulate perfectly, respond perfectly, heal perfectly, communicate perfectly, and parent consciously every moment of every day. Again, that's not the goal. While being completely dysregulated themselves, like how can a parent do any of these things when they themselves aren't regulated and are overwhelmed and are burnt out, right? And so I think some parents are quietly drowning under the pressure of trying to quote unquote do it right. I know this for myself. I remember one particular day where I had spent hours trying to stay emotionally regulated. I was validating Khalil's feelings throughout the day, offering choices throughout the week, using calm language, taking deep breaths often and always, and really in doing the co-regulation that I talk about. I really do live out what I talk about. And then Khalil, had his meltdown anyway. And eventually I also had my own meltdown. Nothing, abusive or dangerous to my child or the environment around us. But I cried. I got frustrated. I left the room. I was definitely not sounding like the emotionally evolved parent that maybe there is a perception of through the podcast. I don't, that is not me 100% of the time. And I don't I think that that's okay. I don't think that that's the goal. But of course, after I had my own meltdown, I immediately feel guilty because the goal is to model the behavior you want for your kids. And I feel guilty because I feel like oftentimes the internet parenting culture has convinced many parents that if we lose our patience or raise our voice or feel overwhelmed or are somehow failing emotionally, which failure is not a thing, it's just a lesson. But when we are displaying an emotion that we prefer not to, that we are doing something wrong. And so it had me thinking, how are parents expected to regulate children when nobody is supporting the parent, right? We get a lot of tools and tips and advice, but where is the actual support on this journey? And social media, like most things, has intensified this because parenting online also has become, and quite frankly, deeply performative. I grapple often with how much I want to show in terms of my parenting journey online. And more than anything, I want to respect my son's privacy as he grows and matures and evolves as any child deserves to. And I think that that should be his journey. So, but I do try to show and celebrate the moments that display our collective experience. But I'm mindful of not being performative because this is just our real lives, and every day is not, a utopian, and sometimes we're a mess. And I think that that's okay too. I mentioned in the past podcast, it's okay to not be okay. I understand the frustration a lot of parents have too, because nowadays everyone has the advice around, the scripts to say and the frameworks to use and the routines and the color coded charts and the sensory bins. I have been one of them and am currently, because those things are important. I'm smiling as I'm talking, as I'm unpacking this, because I play a role, but I also understand as a parent, I'm always thinking about how do I meet that? How do I acknowledge that this real raw feeling too, that many parents are like, listen, I haven't even been able to use the bathroom alone in 4 years. And somebody just wrote on my wall, I don't have time for a framework. I completely get that. Trust me. And I think parents, especially millennial parents, if you will, that's just to kind of put a bucket around it, are carrying a pressure to break the cycles, heal childhood trauma, parent consciously, regulate perfectly, never yell, never feel shame, never lose their patience. And those things do happen and can happen, especially while you are growing. And when those things do happen, it's important for you to give yourself grace and bounce back, learn a lesson, and try again. It's impossible to do all of those things in terms of breaking cycles and healing trauma and regulating and never yelling, while also working, caregiving, surviving an economy that is rooted in inflation, navigating school systems that are struggling themselves, carrying emotional labor for multiple people, not just your child, and parenting in a society with very little support in the village. How are you expected to not yell sometimes and not lose your patience, right? So I want us to be cognizant of this gentle parenting. And even for me, I talk about the conscious parenting piece, which to me is like being aware and not moving blindly. But I want to always put an addendum on the end of those conversations with, it's okay to be not okay, and it's okay to have a messy moment. Okay? That is a part of the journey. I feel like also what modern parenting, I guess I want to call it, or even like parenting through the lens of social media often encourages is this hypervigilance where parents feel this pressure to constantly, you know, honestly monitor the emotions, analyze the behaviors of their child, and prevent the trauma from happening with their child and avoiding mistakes and, emotionally optimizing on every interaction. And that's exhausting too. Like I often found myself lately reminding myself that like, y'all can just be like, you can be in your home and your child can be, in a different space and you can be in a different space and y'all can be amongst each other and still have connection there. Like parenting doesn't often have to be rooted in like constant therapizing and, being on guard. And one of the things that I wrote in the Transformative Parent Playbook is that healing while parenting can quietly become another impossible standard for parents if you are measuring it against something else. Like, healing is such a personal journey and it's so unique to you that it isn't supposed to be incredibly messy, actually. It's not a box to check off, really. It's really a lifestyle that you have to choose to embody, and that comes with hiccups along the way. It's kind of like learning to, I always attribute much of these new experiences to working out in the sense that you start out and your muscle mass is weak, and so you're building it and it's uncomfortable in the beginning and maybe you can only do one rep and it's messy and your structure and your body posture is a hot mess. But if you can, and you're sore afterwards and you feel depleted, but if you come back the next time and you try again and you try to improve the next time, then you get better, but it is messy, and the goal is to lean into the mess of it all. So, with that, I want to leave you with some ways in which you can embrace this journey in all of its mess without feeling like you have to be perfect and constantly stay in a mode of gentle parenting. Ask yourself, am I parenting from connection or from fear of messing my child up, right? You cannot parent from a fear-based place. There's a difference there. Some parents are no longer making decisions based on what's suitable. They're parenting from anxiety. And so think about that. Fear comes from, they're parenting from a fear of causing trauma or saying the wrong thing or becoming their parents, quote unquote. And so the goal is to, again, apologize and bounce back from the mistakes, not to walk on eggshells and avoid them. Mistakes are lessons that we are supposed to learn from, not to avoid. And of course, and that's the discovery phase. So when you think about the acceptance piece, it means that you are still human while parenting. And so you will get overwhelmed and you will lose patience. You will need breaks and you deserve them. You will become overstimulated. You will need moments of repair, and that does not make you a bad parent. And obviously, I think that this is sometimes I think my lens is coming from a single parent lens because we do a lot by ourselves. But this is for co-parenting households too. Like how are you all co-supporting each other and taking breaks and tag teaming, right? And then comes embracing. And embracing says, I can parent consciously without expecting perfection from myself. Again, conscious is awareness, it's observing, it is not moving blindly, is knowing when you've yelled that immediately you're like, oop, maybe I shouldn't have raised my voice. I'm sorry. I should not have yelled, right? Always name the thing you're apologizing for, but then go back and repeat the expectation that you had. It's not lowering the standard. It is modeling the behavior that you want to see. And this is where we move from performative regulation to authentic emotional health. Because children do not need perfect parents. They need emotionally safe parents who repair, apologize, regulate imperfectly, and model humanity. So, I always got to give some practical tips. And this is one that I think that I definitely apply. And I think that I hope it's helpful for you all. Number one, stop consuming social media content 24/7, particularly parenting content. Some parents are overstimulated by information itself, and that includes anything that it my stuff too, anything that feels overwhelming in the moment. Now, don't overstimulate yourself. These are 30 to 60-second snapshots in a 24-hour day, okay? And normalize repair. You're not going to parent perfectly. You're going to make a mistake. Go back, reconnect, and repair. Also, number 3, stop treating every parenting mistake like trauma. You apologize, move forward. There's no need to panic. Learn from the mistake and keep going. Lastly, build regulation for yourself too. You need your sensory breaks. You need your boundaries. You need your emotional support from those who you trust and care about, and some practices on your own that are only for you to keep you present and calm. Okay? So remember this: gentle parenting should not require parents to emotionally disappear. And conscious parenting should not become another impossible performance. This is not a checklist. These are characteristics and behaviors that you want to incorporate so that you find a way to enjoy your life while parenting through the hard times. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to need help, and you are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to apologize, to repair, and to still be a deeply loving parent. Because healthy parenting is not perfection. It's, again, connection and awareness and humanity, truly. I think a lot of parents would feel less broken if we stopped pretending emotionally conscious parenting is supposed to feel emotionally effortless. It's not. It's not easy. It's hard. But it's always about the journey, not the destination, right? And so, thank you always for joining me for another episode. I really appreciate y'all. I'm rushing to get off because I have got to get Khalil up and ready for school per usual. So we're going to stop here. But if this conversation resonated with you, share it with another parent that you may feel is carrying the pressure of trying to parent differently and is struggling with it. Remind them that it's the journey and the mistakes are lessons to be learned. So, as always, remember, you are allowed to be human too, and take care of yourself. Bye. And as always, take care of yourself. Bye. This is Learning Curves and Coffee.